The Niners have 2 All-Pros, and neither one is Nick Bosa. It's Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams. I think both are deserving. I think it's interesting, though, that there are 2 All-Pro teams. First team and the second team. Nick Bosa didn't make either one. Where do you want to start?
I mean, I think you got to start with the snub. You got to start with the disrespect because that gets us off on the right foot. The failure to recognize the chokehold move as a penalty in the league really held Nick Bosa back. And yes, that pun was fully intended there. Bosa, I mean, he put up those stats, drawing the highest double team rate of any edge defender in the league, only received 5 first team votes. It's ridiculous. I mean, the guy was tied for first in 21 tackles for loss, 32 quarterback hits, third in the league, 15 and a half sacks, which is fourth. I mean, it's ridiculous given the amount of double teams he faced, given the number of penalties that should have been called. Not that I'm saying that they, the 49. I get it that you can't complain about the officials, but still, you got to recognize it.
Well, hold on. I'm going to say that I wouldn't have voted for him for first team All-Pro either. He was 4th in the league in sacks. I know he has other stats that are good, pressures and penalties drawn, but fact of the matter is TJ Watt had 22 and a half sacks and Robert Quinn had 18 and a half. Now, Robert Quinn wasn't even first team. He was second team because they made Myles Garrett first team with his 16 sacks. It should have been Quinn and Watt, in my opinion. But anyway, I'm cool with Bosa as a second team, but what's crazy is that he didn't even get that either. They gave it to Max Crosby and his 8 sacks. What? Why?
It's wild. It's wild. It must have been the PFF stat about the number of pressures that he had, which just seemed to be a multiplication issue. Like, we'll take the actual pressures, multiply it by 3, and that's the number we're going to use.
So anyway, Nick, totally snubbed. He should have been second team All-Pro. He was on pace to be first team All-Pro, but he just didn't have many sacks down the stretch. And TJ Watt had 22 and a half. So, I mean, hard to argue with that, but definitely hard to justify Max Crosby's spot. I want to say the other 2 guys. Deebo, I'm glad he got it. There are 3 first-team All-Pro wide receivers. They're Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, and Deebo, and he absolutely deserves to be one of those. And I think if it were only 2 wide receivers, it should be him and Devontae Adams. I don't care. I know that Cooper Kupp put up crazy numbers this year. I know, and he's good too.
That would be hard in my book. I mean, you do have to respect the crazy numbers that Kupp put up, but I agree. I mean, again, I think you have to look at these snubs and these awards in terms of what they mean to the team that they're on and the circumstances that they found themselves within throughout the season. So that goes back to my argument about Bosa, that context matters. You have to take into account the simple fact that he was facing those double teams on a regular basis more than anyone else in the league. And again, with Deebo Samuel, I think that the context matters here. You have to realize that he was the end-all, be-all force of the 49ers offense, that without Deebo Samuel, the San Francisco 49ers are not where they are right now. And the percentage of the offense that went through him is just staggering. And the physical nature of his playing style, the way in which he trucks people, is an absolute pleasure to watch.
I think he's the MVP of the league this year. He's not going to win it because the Niners are a wild card team. He's not a quarterback, but I think he's the best player in football right now. Let's talk about some other snubs real quick before we move on. George Kittle, not first team or second team. First team was Mark Andrews in Baltimore. Second team, Travis Kelce. I don't really have a problem with it. Kittle didn't put up the numbers that he normally does, although he's still a great blocker and still a great player. It's just, what are you supposed to do? The other guys had better resumes this year.
They do. And again, it's the statistics that matter, right? It doesn't matter that he is a critical role for the 49ers. It doesn't matter he's the best blocking tight end in the league.
Still a great player.
Right. If you look at, again, if you cover the teams individually, I think you have a different perspective on some of these players. And potentially I'm ill-informed on some of these players on other teams because I spend the vast majority of my time looking at the 49ers. But again, the critical role that George Kittle plays within the San Francisco offense and how he contributes to the running game, I think is not accounted for at all in that voting.
Another snub, maybe not a snub, but Fred Warner. He was an All-Pro in the past. This year, the All-Pro linebackers are Micah Parsons, Darius Leonard, Devondre Campbell. That's the first team. And then the second team, you got Demario Davis, Roquan Smith, and Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner again. So it was a down year from Fred Warner. His peers agreed. And then finally, Jimmy Ward. I mean, he's never gotten consideration, but I just want to list the safeties who got it over him. Justin Simmons, Micah Hyde, and Buda Baker were second team. And first team safeties were Kevin Byard and Jordan Poyer. Well, there you go. Jimmy Ward, he's as good as those guys, isn't he? I think he is.
Yeah, but both he and Fred Warner are missing those big splash plays, the statistics that jump off with turnovers, sacks, and that's a result of what they're asked to do within the defense. So again, I feel like it comes back to the context of this. If you look at the importance of the player to the team and the role that they played, we have a greater appreciation for Fred Warner and what he does on this defense. We have a greater appreciation for Jimmy Ward and the job he does as an eraser against people, and we'll probably be tasked with that yet again on Sunday.
Projection for who could be an All-Pro next year that hasn't been an All-Pro yet on this team. My mind goes immediately to the running back, Elijah Mitchell.
You're going with Elijah Mitchell?
I think next year.
That's fair.
If he plays 16 games, 17 games, I think he could do it.
You could also see a breakout season from Brandon Ayuk. I mean, we're looking at a completely different offense once Trey Lance comes along, potentially a lot more targets to go around. You would think that Debo is still going to continue to feast in this, but if you look at the second half of the season for Brandon Ayuk and project that out over a full 17 games and add on 20 to 30% to those statistics for the additional deep shots that you would assume Trey Lance is going to take, and a fair percentage of those going to Brandon Ayuk, he could very well end up a 1,500-yard receiver next year.
Neil says Nick Wright discussed about arson stat today. Yeah, I heard that he liked my arson analogy. Thank you, Nick.
It's a good one.
He must be a big fan of the show. I appreciate that. Ryan says Grant with the camera upgrade. No, I don't know. Maybe it's just the lighting. Niners win this one simply because of physicality. That's my belief. My worry is Jimmy Garoppolo run may delay Trey Lance. I don't know. It seems like everyone on the team is pretty openly saying like, well, this is the last ride for Jimmy. You know, like they say it in press conferences now. I think Jimmy would really have to win the Super Bowl to press that one.
Yeah, I thought that what you heard from Juice today in saying, I was sort of surprised that Jimmy shared that little tidbit about me coming up to him pregame and saying, hey, this could be our last ride together. I really think that was Juice saying like, hey, that sort of took away your leverage of possibly coming back here next year. You basically said straight up, this is the last ride.
Yeah. Eric says you got a proper mic, Grant. Rob's mic is still better. Rob's mic is way better. It's not even close. I think Rob has the best mic you could get. And I aspire to get that mic soon. I don't know why I'm waiting for it, but
I stole my inspiration from Joe Rogan.
Yeah, that's a nice. Yeah, I got to get that. Happy birthday, Grant. Sorry that I'm a day late. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.